Okay, so we've looked at various demand elasticities. We've looked at price elasticity demand, we've looked at income elasticity demand, and we've looked at cross-price elasticity demand. So the last thing we've got to look at is one of the most misunderstood elasticities that there is, which is price elasticity of supply, or PES. And for some reason, students get really very confused by this one. And really, it's quite simple, really. All it's showing you is how easy it is to change supply if I offer you more money. So if I offer you a higher price, presumably you're going to want to supply more. Well, can you? That's what price elasticity of supply shows us. So yeah, it shows, I mean, if we describe it in the same way as we described all the others, it shows the responsiveness, in this case, of supply to a change in price. It's measured by the percentage change in quantity supplied over the percentage change in price. And generally, we would expect an increase in price. If I offer you an increase in price, then you'll probably want to supply more. If I offer you a lower price, you'll probably want to supply less. Therefore, that's a positive correlation. Price elasticity of supply will generally be positive. So if we put that into English though, what is it really showing us? It's showing how easy is it for, if we think about an increase in price, how easy is it for a firm to increase supply following an increase in price? So at that stage, it should be relatively simple then. So if we say, well, what sort of things, so I offer you more money, well, what might stop you? If we think about what are some of the factors that are going to affect that, I offer you more money, can you quickly supply me more? Well, you can if it's easy to hold stocks. So we say the ease of holding stocks. If you can simply, I offer you a higher price, and you simply kind of go, well, yeah, okay, here's one here. I can store pens, but you can't store fresh raspberries, and you can't freeze them. They go off in days. So in the winter, it's very difficult to increase the, even if I offer you a high price for raspberries, it's going to be quite difficult for you to increase the supply. You might be able to fly them in from somewhere hot, but fundamentally, it's going to be quite difficult. A second thing then linked to that, is how is the length of the production period. Does it take a long time to produce? And again, that would be the example of agricultural products. Apparently things like olives or something. If you plant an olive tree, it's like 3 to 5 years before you're going to get any olives off it. So even if the price of olives goes up, it's going to be very difficult to increase the supply. Supply will be unresponsive, therefore inelastic. It might be the nature of factors of production. So it might be that you need specialists or something. So if we're talking about the supply of transplant operations or something, lung transplants or heart transplants, you need specialist surgeons, and it's going to take years before you can really increase the availability of those types of things. You might think about whether a firm has spare capacity or not. So if you're operating, if you're a business and you've got lots and lots of spare equipment around, and I offer you a higher price, well, it's going to be quite easy, to supply more. And that's going to be particularly the case if there's no physical limit. So a little bit later, we'll have a think about the price elasticity supply of music downloads. Well, there's no real restrictions, there's no real restrictions on how much can be supplied. And the other one that's important is how long are we talking about? The time period that we're considering. So if I want you to supply me more beer now, you can't give me more beer. If I ask you to supply me more beer later, well, you might be able to. If I ask you to supply more beer next week, you can provide me with barrels. So how long I give you is also going to be a factor that will affect price elasticity of supply. So if we, well, I mean, that's basically it, and we know that it is the usual game, which is, if it's elastic, then an increase in price leads to a more than proportional increase in supply. If it's inelastic, then an increase in price leads to a less than proportional increase in supply. And you'll end up, therefore, with something like this. Suppose that's the price initially and supply is at Q1 and price rises to P2. If supply is comparatively elastic, then we're going to get a really big increase in supply and you'll end up with something that looks like that. If supply is comparatively inelastic, we might start at the same point. If price rises to P2, supply only moves to Q2. So supply looks more like that. So that's your inelastic. That's your inelastic supply. And as I say, it'll depend on those factors that we were talking about. So if we, so we also talked about the short run and the long run. We said that in the short run, in economics there are three time periods. There's the momentary period, in which all factors of production are fixed, and therefore you can't increase supply at all. There's the short run, in which at least one factor of production is fixed. So that's usually something like land or capital. You can't quickly increase the amount of land that you've got in production. In the long run, all factors of production are variable. You can have more of everything, therefore it's quite easy to increase supply. So what you'd say is, as price rises, in the momentary period, there's nothing you can do. In the short run, you can supply a bit more, and in the long run, at price P2, you could supply even more. So again, what we're saying is that supply is more elastic in the long run than it is in the short run. But finally, if we just think about some limiting cases, let's suppose we think about something like stadiums. So this is some sort of concert or something along those lines. If the concert's held at Wembley Arena, I don't know what the capacity at Wembley Arena is actually. Let's suppose it's the stadium is huge, but the arena, let's say, is 15,000. It might only be 10,000. I don't know. But it doesn't really matter, because however high the price goes, they only have 15,000 seats. There's nothing that can be done. So what we'd see is that whatever the price is, supply remains the same. So in that case, supply is fixed. Any increase in price has no effect on supply. So the percentage change in supply is 0 for any percentage change in price, and therefore price elasticity supply is 0. The alternative, we mentioned earlier, music downloads. Well, music downloads are one of those weird ones where, you can pay for music downloads, it's possible. Or music streaming or something. So Spotify, you're paying £10 a month. Well, you can have as many, within reason. In principle, you can have whatever it is. Whether you want to listen to music for 24 hours, 48 hours, 72 hours. Supply simply meets demand. Supply is horizontal. For your subscription, you can listen to as much music as you want. And there we'd say that price elasticity is basically infinite. There's no restrictions at all. So that's it really. And the main thing is, don't mix up elasticity of supply with supply. When you're talking about elasticity of supply, you're saying, how does supply respond to a change in price? Not does supply go up or down. So when you're writing answers, can I say, if price was to rise, then it would either be easy or difficult to increase supply. For manufactured goods, it's normally quite easy. They're easy to store. You can, so like cars, you can have stocks. It's a factory. You can quickly order new ingredients, components and so on. Often suppliers are local and so on. Whereas for agricultural products, it's much harder. You can't store them so easily, especially not fresh fruits. It takes time to grow them, and supply, therefore, even if price goes up, supply will tend to be more inelastic. But that's the key. It's the responsiveness of supply to a change in price, not just can supply change, not just is supply volatile. So sometimes people will say that agricultural goods are elastic because their supply is volatile. Now that's true, it is volatile. Yeah? If the weather is good, you have lots of stuff. If the weather is bad, you don't. But that's not elastic. Elastic is saying, can you yourself increase or decrease supply in response to an increase in price? Is it inside your control? So if you offer you a higher price, can you easily supply more? And if the answer is you can, then that's elastic. And if the answer is that you can't, then that's inelastic supply. Hope that helps.